very mindful of this window and this beautiful light that the sun is just at the right time and is shining through as we celebrate and remember today such a wonderful person of light and love in Elda Chisholm. And so we're very, very grateful that you all have made your way here, and thank you and from all of us in the Office for Religious Life and Memorial Church, especially to you, John, and to Jackie, who I know is here with us via FaceTime. We really send our love and condolences to both of you, especially at this time. And to all of you, thank you for being here. We gather as a community here in a place for many years and on so many occasions holds the ebb and flow of all that is the story of dear ones we have loved, celebrated, and now say goodbye to. And today is such a day, and we are so, so grateful to be in such a glorious place like Memorial Church, to celebrate the extraordinary and well-lived life of Elda Chisholm. We cherished Elda, a joyous and bright life every time she came to worship here with us on Sunday mornings and on Christmas Eve. She was a faithful volunteer here for a number of years, and Elda always managed to just bring warmth to my heart and a smile to my face in countless ways. And I truly have been grateful to have known her and to firsthand experience her vibrant, loving spirit. She was a remarkable, clear-eyed, and confident woman. She was a presence indeed. And reading again her obituary reminded me what a life force she really was, and how lucky I was and we were to have been in her orbit here at Stanford Memorial Church. Today's service will be a lovely tribute and celebration of Elda in a church that she did truly love and loved her. And there will be plenty of Gilbert and Sullivan music. I was reminded of the piece that she wrote, and you're going to hear some of her writings today, that hung in our former Dean for Religious Life office. One that Elda wrote up upon the occasion of our annual staff and volunteer luncheon. Some of that said, "A laughing, loving, literate lot," she wrote, "ready for come what may. Visible there was the choir, their talk was a melody too. All kinds of people attended, a wonderful motley crew." And then, she continued, by clerical magic, chocolates appeared for dessert. Just what was needed after the food to keep us somewhat alert. Elda herself was such food for the soul. And it's fitting now that we take this time to gather, remember and celebrate her. Elda, your time among us will always feel far too short. And we give thanks to God for you as your family and friends. For we have been given the sacred honor to have known and loved you as a companion on our earthly journey. May the warmth in our hearts this day, our cherished memories, and the presence of this caring community console and comfort, especially those for whom this parting brings particular pain and a sense of loss. We are grateful for the gift of human relationships and for the strength we draw from one another throughout our lives during both joyful and difficult times. And so may we also, in quiet confidence, continue our course on earth in peace and friendship, bearing the kind of care, commitment, and compassion Elda bestowed and gave freely to so many people here and to all whom she met. May we go as those not without hope, but in gratefulness for Elda Chisholm, a life well lived and loved.
Dear friends, welcome and thank you for coming. My sister Jackie and her husband Jimmy Lynch, who are here with us from Tampa via FaceTime, and I are so grateful for your being here with us today. Thank you for helping us celebrate the life of our mother, Elda Mary Digiuni Chisholm. Like you, Jackie and I feel blessed to have had her in our lives, in our cases, for well over half a century. Last month in Florida, Jackie and Jimmy hosted a memorial service and an exquisite butterfly release at Bethesda by the Sea Episcopal Church, and a scattering of Mom's ashes on our beach in Jupiter, where we grew up. I'm the host here at Mem Chu, as Stanford Memorial Church is affectionately known, where Mom was a parishioner, volunteer, and server from 2004 for over a decade. Many of you knew her as Tiny. I called her Mater since junior high school when I took Latin and started calling everything by its Latin name. Bethesda and Mem Chu were vital to Mom. As a boy, I can remember times when Mom was upset or distraught. I would wait in the car while she went into church, prayed for 15 minutes, and emerged calm with a clear mind. What a testament to her faith. So what can I say about the person who, without a doubt, loved me more than anyone else in the world? More than any other single person, Mom made me who I am today. When your mom is a librarian, book reports on easy books are not allowed. You have to choose hard books. Whether it was school or Boy Scouts or sports, at which I was hopeless, you always had to choose the harder path. And yes, it was Mom who pushed me to apply, and only Mom who had confidence I could get in to MIT, the most significant and long-lasting professional relationship of my adult life. When most people think of Mom, vivacious and young at heart are the adjectives that come to mind first. Case in point, when cousins Philip and Cecily Tasker had to distract Mom an hour before her 95th birthday to keep it a surprise, they were stunned to see her climb onto the safety railing overlooking San Francisco Bay, smiling and pointing at birds in the water. She was indeed vivacious and young at heart, and those qualities surely contributed to her living for a century. And knowing Mom as I do, I would add two other adjectives, and those are tenacious and independent. Most people don't know that at the age of 10, in 1929, Mom lost both of her parents. How difficult and desperate that must have been for a 10-year-old girl. The very year the U.S. plunged into the Great Depression. So many times Jackie and I have heard Mom say, eat everything in front of you. You never know where your next meal will come from. For many parents, it's just an expression. For Mom, it was a reality. We're blessed to live in a much more abundant time now. And often I have to remind myself that that message doesn't apply. But the thrust of the message, the value of frugality, has served, and I dare say will continue to serve us well. 10-year-old Elda was taken in by Mrs. Mary Simone in Newtonville, Massachusetts, whom Jackie and I knew as Nonna. The only grandparent we ever knew. Walking to high school, Mom passed by the public library every day, and one day inquired if they needed an assistant. Indeed, they did. Mom took her work very seriously there and was cherished there. Mrs. Dorothy Peters House, the head librarian, would become maid of honor in Mom's wedding. Mom received a 2-year scholarship to Boston University and graduated with a certificate in education in 1939. Other women were afraid to apply for library jobs at MIT because the work would be so technical, but not Mom. She was confident she could learn whatever she would need to learn. When she applied in April 1945, the US was still at war with Germany, and she was offered a job the same day she applied. A requirement of the job was to take scientific German at MIT, which she did, despite the fact that Germany unconditionally surrendered in May 1945, less than 3 weeks after she started. As an Italian, Mom faced discrimination. At Newtonville Library, Mom had become close to an Italian medical student at Tufts named Tony Sabino, who would study late in the library every night. Tony and Elda wanted to get married, but Tony's parents, themselves Italian, didn't want their son marrying an Italian girl, even though Elda was born in Boston. During World War II, Mom and others genuinely feared that her older brother Louis might be deported since he was born in Italy. Mom would often try to hide her Italian heritage, insisting that her own mother had been French. In 2011, I visited Pizzighettone, Italy, near Cremona, where Mom's father was born in 1881, and learned that both of her parents were indeed Italian. I told Mom how proud I was to have descended from Italy, home of the Renaissance, Da Vinci, Galileo, Michelangelo, Verdi. I sensed it was a huge relief to her to hear her own son celebrate what she had so long tried to hide. In 1967, Mom and Dad were divorced, and Mom went back to school to get her bachelor's degree from Florida Atlantic University. She was 52. After that, she could support herself as a school teacher and be financially independent of anyone else, which meant a great deal to her. She loved her students, she loved teaching, and she loved the freedom it brought her. She traveled all over the world with Elder Hostel and other groups. She kept teaching until age 90 in Palo Alto, where she tutored Stanford scholars from overseas in English. She was always looking for work, both to be useful to others and for her own sense of financial security. Even at the age of 99, when she moved to the Alma Via memory care facility, she wanted to know if they needed a librarian. In her 70s, Mom became a staunch gay and lesbian advocate. When I came out to her in my mid-30s, her initial reaction was deep concern, as much for what it would mean for the rest of my life as for any impact on her life. But when we talked again a couple of weeks later, she said, "You're the same person you were 2 weeks ago, and I still love you." Mom would march with front runners in a gay pride parade, and in 2008, at the age of 89, hold up a No on 8 placard at a Palo Alto polling station opposing the measure that disallowed same-sex marriage. She chose a daytime slot to protest so she wouldn't have to drive home after dark. She was vivacious, young at heart, tenacious, independent. She did much good for a very long time, for her family, for her friends, and for the world. We deeply miss her. Our entire family is grateful for your love and friendship. Thank you again.
My name is Gally Hagel, and I am a friend of John and Elda's. When I first moved to the Bay Area 10 years ago, I was fortunate enough to meet John very soon after I moved here. And John was kind enough to introduce me to his mother, Tiny, who quickly became a dear friend. And I feel privileged to have known her. She was an anchor to me during my first years here. And she was a force of nature, and she helped me in many, many ways, and I dearly miss her. And John gave me a choice of poems that she wrote to read, and I picked a very simple haiku that I think really embodies her approach to life and to everyone that she met. Buds must be watered to become healthy blossoms. Children must be loved.
I was a lad, I served a term as office boy to an attorney's firm. I cleaned the windows and I swept the floor, and I polished up the handle of the big front door. I polished up that handle so carefully that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Office boy, I made such a mark that they gave me the post of a junior clerk. I served the writs with a smile so glad, and I copied all the letters in a big round hand. I copied all the letters as hand so free that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. In serving writs, I made such a name that an articled clerk I soon became. I wore clean collars and a brand new suit for a pass examination at the Institute. And that pass examination did so well for me that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Of legal knowledge I acquired such a grip that they took me into the partnership, and the junior partnership, I ween, was the only ship that I ever had seen. But that kind of ship so suited me that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. I grew so rich that I was sent by a pocket borough into Parliament. I always voted at my party's call, and I never thought of thinking for myself at all. I thought so little they rewarded me that now I'm the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Now, landsmen all, whoever you may be, if you want to rise to the top of the tree, if your soul is infected to an office stool, be careful to be guided by this golden rule. Stick close to your desks and never go to sea, and you all may be rulers of the Queen's Navy.
I just wish I had learned earlier in my life how much Elda loved Gilbert and Sullivan, because so do I, and I would have dragged her to the Lamplighters over and over and over had I known back then, and I should have, because I'm her cousin. So I'm Jeannie, and I am John, Dana, and Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Cousin. My dad and Dana, oh, you call him John, I call him Dana, so just bear with me today. And my dad and Dana and Jackie's father were first cousins, and they were very, very close. And in fact, they went to Europe together when they were young lads, and that closeness lasted through the years. And so when I was growing up, before we moved out to California, I remember that it seemed like it was every weekend, but it was probably once a month. We would make our treks down to Marblehead to visit the Chisholms, Jack, Elda, Dana, and Jackie. Or no, excuse me, Jackie, then Dana. And we would visit them. The boys would all go out and check on the lobster traps, and we girls would sit around and we would have afternoon tea. And my mother, because I was young then, my mother never allowed me to drink tea because it might stunt my growth. And so she gave me what was called cambric tea. It was a little milk and a little sugar in hot water. Well, Elda decided that I was grown up enough, and so she said, come on, I'll make you real tea in a pot. So I would look forward to these weekends because I would have real tea with Elda, real tea from a pot like grown-ups do. She was the one who let me be the grown-up. Now I suspect it was really weak because you can tell it hasn't stunted my growth. Yeah. Now, my cousin Dana, I believe, inherited his brilliance, his focus for business from his dad. But he has a whimsical and a really warm-hearted side to him. And I believe he got that from Elda. And Jackie, to me, is Elda reincarnated. The love, the giving, all of that. Elda was a people person. She was an extraordinary teacher. She was kind. She was sensitive. She was also a cat lover, which of course warmed my heart because I am too. And of course, you know she loved to dance. But she did have one little secret that I discovered 5 years ago. It was her 95th birthday, and some of us, family and friends, had gathered at Dana's place in the city overlooking the water. And I was talking to Elda and I was saying, wow, Elda, 95, you shout this from the rooftops. And she says, oh, no. And I said, what? She says, I don't let anybody know my age. And I said, really? And she says, no, I just don't let anybody know I don't want anybody to know my age. And I said, oh, okay, so we'll keep this as a secret between you and me. So just between you and me, it's a secret. Now, what I didn't let her know was in 5 hours, she was going to step into the biggest party of everybody she knew on the West Coast, there to celebrate 95. And I think that's the last time she ever worried about letting anybody know her age. My cousin Elda was a great lady.
I had an idea an hour or two ago, so I'm going to try something. But my name's Arthur Chait. I met John several years ago. We both volunteer in Central America, and shortly after, met Mom, right? And I really got to know her when John hosted a celebration MIT was honoring Sal Khan Academy. And John was really busy that day. And he said to me, could you and Susan, my wife, take care of Mom? And I said, sure. And so Mom looks at me with a sparkle in her eye and says, so you're my date. And so we spent the evening with her, and I knew she liked to dance, as do I. And so at the right time, I asked the disc jockey, do you have any classic, anything? And he did, he had something, so we did a little foxtrot, right? So fast forward, and we would dance whenever I had a chance, and sometimes it would be just a stand up, sometimes it would be a sit down as she got older. At her 100th birthday party last summer, the band decided it would play this. Well, that's about as good as I got. Yellowbird. They announced it was her favorite song. And I was standing not too far, and she's in a wheelchair now. And one arm was a bit hurt. And so I walked over and we danced. She still had one good arm, she still had her rhythm. I did the footwork, she helped me with the turns, and that was our last dance together. So it only seemed fitting when John asked me, what poem do you want to read? Well, of course, Jamaica. So this is something she wrote. The Chisholm family had a sister church, like a relationship with a church in Jamaica, and they went and visited Jamaica, and she was enchanted. And if you've ever been the first time, remember back if you've gone to an island, almost any island, but a tropical island, the first time you go, it's just wonderful. And they toured around, they did the famous Montego Bay to Kingston Drive over the mountains and all the rest. And when she got back, she wrote this poem. It's entitled Jamaica, and the artwork is in the lobby. My heart sings, my soul soars, as high as your lovely sun-topped mountains when I hear your name. Sustained by mangoes, pineapples, bananas, refreshed by coconut milk and cool green limes. Sounds of laughter and calypso singing everywhere. Unforgettable, soft, rhythmic, joyous, proud, and lonely too. God made this paradise. He said, "Let your children come unto me, not just one kind, but all." So the glistening dark and the shining fair live side by side in peace in Jamaica by the beautiful crystal sea. Now, I'm sure Elda's here, but I'll bet after this is over, she'll go back to Jamaica. Thank you.
I'm William Murray. I'm an old friend of John, and through John got to know Elda pretty well. And I've been doing a little research as related to the Gilbert and Sullivan theme. It was Sir William Gilbert and Sir Arthur Sullivan. They were both knighted. And they're both, of course, have gone on to the next world. There's some debate as to where their Sullivan ended up, but we'll overlook that for the moment. And the rumor has it that Elda has, they're doing, William Gilbert, who was a lawyer by training, was doing some fact-checking for the latest operetta they're thinking of composing, which is Elda and the Last Century. Okay. And so a couple of the questions he needed to know, though, before they began this undertaking was along the following lines. As you know, Elda was quite a dancer as well as singer and musical, and he wanted to know that did he actually give dance lessons to Ginger Rogers at Radio City as well as to the Rockettes? And next he wanted to know, did she really baked chocolate chip and oatmeal cookies for the admissions office at MIT when John was applying? I think that's a legitimate question, important point. And or was she an understudy for Judy Garland or Edith Piaf at some point? And finally, did she accept free rides to MIT events that John sponsored up in the city from various alums, such as myself, who were not contract employees for either Uber or Lyft? And the answer, I think is yes. And did she really refer that John Dana buy a condominium in Millennium Towers, which would have been a bad call in the city? And finally, on the fashion line, as you noticed, did she really prefer, did she approve of a brand label, women's clothing called, with the tagline, "For every woman who wants to be tiny"? So at any rate, Elda is missed but not forgotten. Look at it this way: she just joined the heavenly chorus in the skies, and will be waiting for the next operetta anytime soon from Gilbert and Sullivan.
My name is Pat Peterson. I'm from San Jose, and the reason I mention where I'm from is because that's how I came to meet Elda. John and I share some ideas, and John hosts some wonderful parties and events up in San Francisco at his place. And one time, and his mom was in Palo Alto at the time, it's almost 10 years ago or so. And he said, Mom might like to come to this. Pat, any chance you could give her a lift on the way up? So with that, I met John's mom, and we had a wonderful ride up and back because it just worked out perfectly. And I did that several times over the next several years, and it was just a wonderful opportunity. I'll be reading the poem, My Friend the Ginkgo Tree, by Elda. In summer, my ginkgo tree is green, a symphony of beautiful leaves of conifer branches, stately serene, and so dense they make a perfect screen from the ground up to my treehouse eaves. In fall, my ginkgo tree is yellow, a sun shining into the fourth floor as the golden leaves tickle the window, and me, in answer to my hello, bright, brilliant yellow presaging more. In winter, my ginkgo tree is bare, but a revelation of action. Squirrels, formerly hidden, jump in midair, from branch to branch, fearless as a dare, furry squirrels in joyous motion. In spring, my tree has buds, cones, and seeds, an oriental delicacy. Not for me, mutual respect exceeds, of true friend trust that thus succeeds, in my tree and me, living in harmony. Thank you.
I'm very well acquainted too with matters mathematical. I understand equations both the simple and quadratical. About monomial theorem I'm teeming with a lot of news, with many cheerful facts about the square of the hypotenuse. I'm very good at integral and differential calculus. I know the scientific names of beings animalculous. In short, in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I am the very model of a modern major general. I know mythic history, King Arthur's answer paradox. I answer hard acrostics, I've a pretty taste for paradox. I quote and elegize all the crimes of Heliogabalus. In conics I can floor peculiarities, parabolas. I can tell undoubted Raphael from Gerardouzin's orphanies. I know the croaking chorus from the frogs of Aristophanes. Then I can hum a fugue of which I've heard the music's din of four. Got it. And whistle all the airs from that infernal nonsense Pinafore. Babylonic uniform and tell you every detail of Caractacus's uniform. In short, in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I am the very model of a modern major general. In I can tell it's like a Mauser rifle from a javelin. When such affairs as sorties and surprises I'm more wary at, and when I know precisely what is meant by commissariat, when I have learned what progress has been made in modern gunnery, when I know more of tactics than a novice in a nunnery, in short, when I've a smattering of elementary strategy. Strategy? I've got it. You'd say a better Major General has never strategy. For my military knowledge, though I'm plucky and adventurous, has only been brought down to the beginning of the century. But still, in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I am the very model of a modern Major General.
Wonderful, Paul. That was great. Thank you. My name's Harbo Jensen. I got to know Elda fairly late in her life. As a matter of fact, it was at her 95th birthday where I think I was one of the, I remember you were there, we were dancing, but I think I was the first one to dance with her. After that, and many other people did too. And I understand the next day, she was bragging to her friends that the previous evening she had danced with 7 gentlemen. We danced again at her 98th and again at her 100th. And as Art mentioned, in her 100th, it was in a wheelchair, but we still wheeled a mean foxtrot across the floor. Now, my family often visited Bethesda by the Sea in a church in Florida, and I remember seeing the poems there in the blue and green illuminated text. Some of them are outside, including the one I'll be reciting. And it was reminiscent of the blue-green waters of Florida. Only years later did I find that Elda had actually written those poems. It was really quite a coincidence, things coming back together, and very impressive. The context for this particular sonnet is that every Episcopal church is assigned to another church as sort of a partnership called Mutual Responsibility and Interdependence. Elda wrote this sonnet in 1964. After she had visited the St. Margaret's Church in Jamaica, which was the MRI church for Bethesda by the Sea. There's just 2 words I wanted to explain in the poem. One is benison, which means a benediction or a blessing. The other one is lacuna, which is the hollowed out inside part of a shell. So to get in the mood, visualize a beach. Not one of our California beaches, but a Florida or a Jamaica beach, white sand, palm trees, warm water. The waves have broken on the shore and pushed up seashells in a long ribbon along the shore just above the break line. And those ribbons are glistening, and the interconnectedness of the shells becomes Elda's allegory for the interconnectedness of churches and indeed of interconnectedness of people. A Mutual Responsibility and Interdependence by Elda Chisholm. A mutual responsibility and interdependence. No one, not one, is perfect. Let us sit, sun, and talk of this here in tranquility. The sea lulls us. The possibility occurs to us, a whispered benison, that the imperfect shells in unison could be ourselves. They have the ability to form a sparkling, jewel-studded belt along the length of sand. Each imperfect shell in its niche supporting another. We knelt to lift a shell, a definite small well, lacuna was there. Each was independent on another to make the belt resplendent. We all miss Elda, but we can remember her sparkling eyes, her beaming smile and cheerful attitude captured in these pictures. She brought the light into our world.
You all have done a marvelous job of not crying while you were up here. I'm not sure I'm going to achieve that feat. I am Karen Haas, and I grew up with John and Jackie. In fact, Jackie, I said this before, but Jackie was my very first playmate when I moved to the wonderful little village of the Inlet Beach Colony, where the Chisholms had arrived about a year before the Haas family did. John and I bumped into each other in the yard of his home on the corner of Beacon Lane and Lighthouse Drive, and that's because from their house, out that direction, was this magnificent tall red lighthouse, and on Beacon Drive, just around the corner, was because the beacon would flash over our heads every night, guiding the ships to safety. I bumped into John in his front yard, and we discovered we both lived in California. Oh, we both lived in Silicon Valley. Oh, we both lived in Menlo Park, California. So it began a whole new relationship with John, and of course Elda, when she arrived here, not 15? I don't know how long ago it was, but I had the pleasure of coming and spending time with her and getting to relate to her as an adult. But the poem that I'm going to read here in just a minute is so appropriate because I got to meet Elda as a child, a young child, and grew up into a teenager and went off and hadn't seen Elda until 10 years ago. But she always exuded this amazing warmth and love, and the twinkle that people talk about always made me feel really safe and cared for. And as a young girl, kind of new in town, and I was actually going to spend the night at the Chisholm's house, and was I going to be safe? Elda always made it really, really comfortable and warm, and insisted I eat breakfast. So the other thing I'd like to share about Elda was we lived in this wonderful little, I call it a fishing village. It's no longer a fishing village. It's turning into quite an elegant place. But when we lived there, there weren't too many stoplights or places to shop. But we lived on the south end of this island called the Inlet Beach Colony, which was the south end of Jupiter Island. They called it Inlet Beach Colony because the beach was we were bordered by the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean on the east of us, the inlet on the south of us, and the waterway to the west of us. I don't know why they didn't call it the Inlet Beach Waterway Colony, but I guess that was too many words. But we had these little pathways that started out as sand pathways covered with sand spurs, and if you weren't careful, you would get a pretty painful journey to the beach. But I would spend a lot of time, the beach was our playground, and I would oftentimes for entertainment walk the beach from the southern end where I was up to the northern end where they were. And it was not the least bit uncommon to see Elda Chisholm with her bathing cap leaping out of the waves onto the sand and cheerful as could be, greeting us and hoping we were having a great time on the beach. So that was one of my favorite memories of I still call her Mrs. Chisholm. So here's another poem by her which exemplifies how important the care and feeding of children were, and a career exemplifying that. Children are like pearls, each pearl unique, yet all alike. Warm your classroom with your presence, until like pearls, each child glows. Handle them gently, yet remembering their sturdy origin. Specks of dust, alternately peaked and polished into precious gems. Wear your pearls with joy. Then, when they are yours no longer, the memory of their warmth and luster will make you infinitely stronger.
Iris and Robert and Paul, thank you so much for that beautiful music today, and to all of you who spoke and shared memories of Elda and her beautiful poetry. It was so wonderful to hear those pieces. I'd like to offer just some closing words to conclude our time together today. Into your gracious care, O loving God, we commend to you Elda Chisholm, one who gave us so much life and love. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the community of the saints, into the blessed rest of everlasting life. And make us, we pray, deeply aware of the shortness and uncertainty of human life. Let us always be guided by common goodness and respect for the dignity of life and for one another. Let us be strengthened always in the comfort of holy hope, and let us be renewed in charity, compassion, and kindness for all humankind. Bless us now with the spirit of faith and courage, that we may have strength to meet the days to come with steadfastness and patience, not as those without hope, but in thankful remembrance of your great goodness. And as we go from this sacred place today, may peace abound in our lives. May we be given hope to see that life is eternal and love is immortal, that death is but a horizon, which is the limit of our sight. We ask that Elda go on living in us all, in our hearts and minds, in the way we value and love one another, embrace the gifts of laughter, of dance, of generosity, of humility, of compassion and respect. As St. John Chrysostom wrote, "She whom we love and lose is no longer where she was before. She is now wherever we are. May it be so."
Examination at the institute. And that past examination did so well for me that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy.